Welcome back everyone, Mariah Monetize here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the price of Bitcoin. I'm going to be saying whether I think $50,000 is more likely or $100,000 first. So in my previous video 3 weeks ago, I told you that I was dumping every last dollar into Bitcoin. So did I stay true to my word? Did my bank shut me down? Well, surprisingly, Banco Popular did not shut me down, but they are known for just randomly cutting people's accounts, especially when they're involved in some sort of crypto. So I transferred money from my Banco Popular business account into my Coinbase, and I was good. No issues, surprised, glad, and happy, but you never know when they change their mind and they go ahead and shut it down. But so far, so good. So after that video, I put my money where my mouth is and I bought Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin at 66,000, about 66,900, 66,000, yeah, right there in that range. So I bought and I bought and I bought right there on March 24th. I'm not gonna show my screen because I do not wanna dox myself. So then I started, so I bought it about 66.8, and then I started selling at about 68.8. And that is because I needed to sell off some Bitcoin for a business transaction. If it was my choice, I would have held, but I needed to exit a business relationship, and so I sold some of my Bitcoin in order to do that. So I went ahead and sold off some Bitcoin, and I sold the least amount that I possibly needed to. And then I started buying back. I bought Bitcoin back at about 67, 66,000, 62, that was in the beginning of April, and then yesterday I started buying more Bitcoin. So basically at this point I am pretty cash poor, I would say. I am kind of just, anytime I have more money to spend on Bitcoin, that's exactly what I'm doing. So let's see here. So then I started buying back at about 62 on the 13th, oh, that was yesterday. So yeah, 62.2 is where my order started filling yesterday. And so yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I have continued to add to my Bitcoin position. I am pretty cash poor, and that's exactly how I like it. I love to say that I'm cash poor, and then I have almost everything into Bitcoin. So anytime I get more income, it's just pretty much going right back into Bitcoin after all my bills and my rent is paid. So let's go ahead and get over to the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is currently sitting at $64,566 on this sunny Sunday afternoon. Well, I hope it's sunny where you are, but yesterday we saw something pretty dramatic on Bitcoin. We saw Bitcoin drop pretty darn good down to 60,000. Let's see, the low of this candle, 60,822. And so let's go ahead and quickly zoom out. Actually, Bitcoin had a double bottom. The double bottom was here on March 20th. Bitcoin had a low of 60,771. So just off by $100 or so, but you can see here, double bottom. And so Bitcoin did bounce off of that low. Bitcoin's up over $4,000 since then. And so what is next for Bitcoin? So I would have liked to see a very sharp recovery on Bitcoin. It's still sitting at 64, but I really do not like how Bitcoin has behaved off of this low here. So it's just ranging here, as you can see over the last few hours, right in between like 64.8 and 63.8, you know, like not really tradable in this zone right here. But yesterday on the 5-minute chart, what I was looking at was, it looks like, in my opinion, that Bitcoin was going to break more bearish. I kind of saw it flagging out here, and it was just ranging, but then it broke very nicely up above. But then it came back here and it hit the top of that range. Let me just draw out the range that I'm talking about so you can have a better idea here. This was what I drew out, I had on my chart earlier, but I just erased it because it was kind of old news. But I drew out this, and that was when Bitcoin was like here, and then it hit the top of the range, and then it broke above the range, and then as you can see, it came back and retested, and even dipped back into that range, but I thought it was going to break more bearish, but it has bumped up and stayed a bit in that range. So what is next for Bitcoin? Is $50,000 more likely or $100,000 more likely? This is what I'm seeing. Obviously Bitcoin has bounced off of that double bottom. I'm not like super confident of the way in which it has bounced. I'm not like overly excited about it, but what's possible? So like I said, Bitcoin has double bottomed, and then what's next? I would say if Bitcoin breaks below right here, Bitcoin breaks below the low of this candle, which is 59,224, there's really not much left down into the $50,000 range. So if Bitcoin breaks below that level right there, that 59,224 range, Bitcoin breaks below 59,000, 50 is just looking quite likely. And, you know, Bitcoin has broken below this moving average. It's closed below it. As you can see here, if you want to put these on your chart, the blue, right there is the 48. And then we have the 200. And then, you know, also too, if Bitcoin kind of drops down to that $50,000 range, it's going to meet up right there with that 200 moving average. So, man, a heck of a lot of weakness. And I don't know, the chart looks really rather weak to me. I don't really like what it's doing here. I mean, tomorrow is going to be very, very telling, especially around when the market opens. It seems like, you know, Bitcoin has had quite a bit of volatility around 9:30, 10 a.m. when the market opens. So I would like to see how Bitcoin behaves tomorrow morning before I would like make any major decisions. But am I selling at this point? I am not convinced enough to sell. I would only consider if we broke below 59,000. I may sell off just one Bitcoin to buy it back at 50, but it really doesn't seem super worth it. We do know that, so the previous market cycle, Bitcoin pulled back, Bitcoin topped 4 days prior to the halving, and then it started pulling back going into the day of the halving. I'll just show you what I'm talking about. So let's go back. The year was 2020, and Bitcoin was halving. This right here is the daily chart, and you can see right here, this was the 11th of May 11th, the day that Bitcoin had the halving, and then you could see that it topped at $10,000 on the 7th, and then the low of the day on the Bitcoin halving was $8,100. So a pretty significant pullback on Bitcoin there. We were kind of I was anticipating a big pump like this right here into the halving, but to be honest with you, we might see even more of a pullback into the halving, and that what could take us down. You know, like the days around the halving are really not very bullish, but I would say they're great buying opportunities. So let's say the scenario is, what's today? Today's the 14th. I believe the Bitcoin halving is supposed to happen on the 20th, but let's see here. And it's always changing, right? It's just basically an approximation, but I believe as we get closer, then, yeah, so we're still looking at 420, of course. Of course, Bitcoin halving is on 420. We're still looking at 420 as the day for Bitcoin to start halving. And so, wow. That actually really makes me think we're kind of actually closer than I was realizing, if I'm being honest with you. I'm just having a hard time grasping the concept of time these days. But let's go and fast forward. I mean, I would say that Bitcoin, like this could be a buying opportunity. This next upcoming week could be a massive buying opportunity. I think it is possible that we see a even larger pullback in Bitcoin. Maybe it takes us down to the $50,000 range, but I don't think I really would be wanting to sell unless we break below $59,000 and then I look to buy back at 50. But you know, we're currently sitting at 64. I mean, if I'm so convinced it's going to 50, but I'm not necessarily, I'm way more convinced that it's going to 50 if it breaks below $59,000. And so you'd be like, well, why wouldn't you sell now? Because I'm really not as convinced. I mean, we can sure look back at the history of Bitcoin, but it doesn't mean it's going to behave exactly the same that it did the previous cycle. And the fractals that I was kind of giving you, those are not matching up. Those are not really in the question either. And so, yeah, that's what I'm kind of seeing here. Let's go ahead and look at like smaller time frames here. Let's look at the 12-hour. So the 12-hour, you know, we're just looking for now at this point for the trend to change and for Bitcoin to be making higher highs. It's not doing that on the 12-hour. Let's take a look at the 4-hour. No, we're just making lower lows. Let's take a look at the hourly. The hourly is just very sideways. Volume is probably just significantly down at this point. But I would say that, I mean, we have already seen quite a bit of, weakness, I feel like, in the stock market. And so maybe this is like signs of just a larger pullback. And so the hourly Bitcoin is just really not giving us much, but I would anticipate that tomorrow will be a very telling day. And just, yeah, I mean, like, who wants to trade this? This right here is like untradeable. And I'm not really anticipating much volume here today on the Sunday, but I expect the volume to pick back up tomorrow. It's on a holiday, yeah, we're good. So, yeah, like when we take a look here at SPY on the daily chart, like we've seen, you know, a pretty big pullback here on SPY, pretty significant. Let's see percentage-wise where we're at. Let's see, so we are looking at about a 3% pullback on SPY, which, I mean, when you look at the past several months, it's just been, you know, straight up from like 412 all the way up to about 520. And so this is like the biggest pullback since over here in October. Let's see what that percentage pullback was. So let's see. So that was more of like over 6% pullback. And then as you can see, we've had a massive run after that. So maybe we see more of a drawdown in all markets, but I don't know. I really wouldn't be wanting to make any big decisions yet. I wouldn't even really want, I wouldn't want to be buying Bitcoin here either. I would want some more direction and more clarity on Bitcoin before even adding to my position at this point. But if you're dollar cost averaging, that's a completely different situation. So those are my current thoughts on Bitcoin. I don't think $100,000 is likely before the halving, which is less than 5.5 days away. I do not think that's very likely. In the next month, I think that, well, I think in the next week is something more likely to take a look at. I'm just going to be very, very focused on that $59,000 level on Bitcoin, and if it breaks below it. For me, that will be the only point that I may consider making a move, which would be likely selling if it breaks below, and looking to purchase in the 50. I'll probably put my buy orders at 52, just in case Bitcoin doesn't make it down all the way to 50, and that's pretty much it. But also depends on the time of day that it happens. You know, if it breaks below 59 and it just flushes all the way down to 50 and I'm in the middle of a very busy workday renting scooters, I might not catch it. If it happens while I'm sleeping, I might not catch it. And so that's just kind of the way it goes. It would be a position that I would want to manage while I'm awake and not distracted doing other things. So that's pretty much it. Kind of boring. I have a link down below if you want to add the Fold app. The Fold app is a good old time. You get a spin every day and you get free Satoshis. And it is always a highlight to my day. I have very few notifications on any of my apps, but basically you get a little spin and then you get a little spin of the wheel and you get some free Satoshis, and then you could also get the Fold credit card, and then every time you make a purchase you get spins as well. So that's a nice dopamine hit, and sometimes we just need a few more of those in our lives. So I hope you enjoyed this video. That's all that I have for you today. As always, go out there and create a portfolio that you love.